Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending today. So the meeting will come to order. My name is Cynthia Lasura-Aquin, and I am the President and CEO of LAURION Mineral Exploration. I'll act as chair of the meeting, and I have appointed Jonathan Tong of the Corporation of Miller Thompson to act as secretary of the meeting, and Laurie Winchester in the back, and Heather McLeod of TSX Trust will act collectively as a scrutineer of the meeting. So I'm going to remind everybody today, including post-meeting discussions, that this will include forward-looking statements. These statements are given as of today's date and involve risks and uncertainties discussed in our public filings, which are available under our profile at SEDAR+. Before we proceed any further, I want to let you know that at the conclusion of the formal business of the meeting, I and other members of the board will make a presentation highlighting LAURION's progress and our strategy for the remainder of 2026 and beyond. We will then address any questions from the audience currently present at the end of the presentation and discussion. So for those of you who are attending virtually, please enter your questions on the chat, and we will endeavor to get back to you after the meeting. Proof of the shareholders of record as of close of business on March the 5th. This is the notice of meeting calling this meeting, together with the management information circular and the proxy form related to the meeting, have been filed. I direct the proof of mailing to be kept with the secretary and the records of the meeting. This notice sets out the various matters to be dealt with at the meeting. With respect to quorum, after the preliminary scrutineer's report, and we have the scrutineer's report, it has been noticed that there is quorum present, and I have received the preliminary scrutineer's report, and this will be annexed to the minutes of the meeting. I declare that the meeting is regularly called and properly constituted, and it is in order for transactional business. With respect to conducting of votes, so before commencing the business of the meeting, I'd like to discuss the voting procedure. So each shareholder of the corporation is entitled to one vote for each share held by him or her. I have been advised by the scrutineer that with respect to each resolution being considered at the meeting, the total number of votes attached to the shares represented at this meeting by proxy required to be voted against each such resolution is less than 5% of all the votes that may be cast in each case. Accordingly, in order to expedite the voting on such matters so that we will have more time for discussion, I propose to conduct the vote on all of these matters by show of hands. In addition, please note that each shareholder or proxy holder present at this has the right to demand that a ballot be conducted on any resolution, either before or after the show or either before or after the show of hands vote. Excuse me there. So note for the official results will be posted after the meeting under our profile on SEDAR+ and in a press release. So with respect to the presentation of our financial statements and reports from our auditor, the first item of business is the presentation of the financial statements of the corporation for the financial years ended December 31st, 2024 and 23, together with the auditor's report thereon. These documents are available on SEDAR. In the interest of time, I do not propose to read these documents at this meeting. Next item is fixing the number of directors. We will now proceed with the fixing of the number of directors of the corporation, and the number of directors to be elected at any annual meeting of the shareholders of the corporation is at 5. May I have a motion to pass a resolution fixing the number of directors at 5?
So,
thank you, Roger. Is there a seconder?
second.
Thank you, Andrew. You have heard the motion as moved and seconded. The motion set at 5, the number of directors of the corporation and the number of directors to be elected at any annual meeting of the shareholders of the corporation is carried. Next item is the election of the directors. We will now proceed with the election of directors of the corporation. The management information circular contains the name of the management's 5 nominees for the board of directors. Before I actually go any further, I would actually like each director to stand up as I introduce them. We have John Cavello.
Nice to meet you.
Mr. Michael Burmy.
Nice to meet you.
Sean Sankazan Goshal. And at the end of the table, it is Vikram Jayaraman.
Nice to meet you.
I nominate Michael Burmy, John Cavello, Cynthia Sarakwin, Vikram Jayaraman, and Shankasan Ghoshal as directors of the corporation to hold office until their successors are elected or appointed in accordance with and subject to the provisions of the corporation's bylaws. Is there a seconder?
That's actually for Roger. Approve that?
Yeah. Go ahead, Roger.
I nominate Michael Burning, John Cavello, Cynthia Sarakwin,
Sorry. Go ahead.
Vikram Jayaraman, and Shankasan Ghoshal as directors of the corporation to hold office until their successors are elected in accordance with and subject to the provisions of the corporation's bylaws.
Can we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Andrew. As the corporation has not received advance notice of any other nominations in accordance with the corporation's advance notice bylaw, I declare the nominations closed. I request a motion to elect persons nominated, namely Michael Burmy, John Cavello, Cynthia Sarakwin, Vikram Jayaraman, and Shankasan Ghoshal as directors of the corporation to hold office until their successors are elected or appointed in accordance and subject to the provision of the bylaws.
So moved.
Is there a seconder?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you. So if you've heard the motion moved and seconded, the meeting will now vote on the motion. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is carried. Sorry, any opposed, I should say, first. Any opposed? No. The motion is carried. I declare that those so nominated is elected by the directors to hold office for the term to expire immediately following the next annual meeting of shareholders or until their respective successors are duly elected or appointed or are otherwise cease to hold office. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of the auditor. This item is to pass a resolution to appoint RSM LLP as our auditor of the corporation, authorizing the directors of the corporation to fix the remuneration to be paid to the auditor and the terms of the auditor's engagement.
So moved.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion as moved and seconded. The meeting will now vote on a motion. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Any opposed? I declare the motion to appoint RSM LLP accountants as the auditor of the corporation until the close of the next annual meeting of shareholders at a remuneration to be fixed by the board of directors carried. Next item is the approval and the ratification of the rolling stock option plan. So we will consider the corporation's approval and ratification of the existing stock option plan. So effective on October the 5th, 2010, the board of directors adopted a rolling stock option plan termed the 2010 stock option plan. The plan, amongst other things, reserves 10% of the number of and outstanding common shares of the corporation from time to time for issuance pursuant to options granted under the plan. In accordance with the TSX venture policies, rolling stock option plans must be ratified by shareholders of an issuer on an annual basis. In order to pass the resolution ratifying the 2010 stock option plan requires an affirmative vote of majority of votes cast for the meeting. The full text of the resolution approving and ratifying the plan is set out in the management information circular. I request a motion to approve such resolution.
So moved.
Is there a seconder?
I second the motion.
Thank you. You have heard the motion as moved and seconded. The meeting has voted on the motion by ballot as conducted by the scrutineer. So, and other business. So is there any other further business talk about here today? Now that the official part of the business is over, the meeting has been addressed, I request a motion to conclude the meeting. Seconder? Thank you, Andrew. You've heard the motion as moved and seconded. The motion is carried and the meeting is now concluded. Thank you very much, everybody. So we're going to proceed on to the presentations in the formal part of the meeting. So I would actually like to address the AGM with some of my opening remarks. So as I commence my opening address, I would like to note the following, that on behalf of our board of directors and the entire team, I want to thank all of our shareholders for your continued support and confidence in the company. Most of you have been with us for years, and we are very deeply grateful for the trust that you place in us and while we're advancing the Ishkade project. So our strategy since 2020 has been consistent and disciplined. Build geological confidence first and then unlock value. Ishkade is not a single target exploration project. It's a district scale mineral system within a historic Onamenta-Beardmore-Geraldton belt. It's an Archean greenstone belt that has produced approximately 4.1 million ounces historically from 19 mines, from a deep-seated orogenic structure known to us as the Paint Lake Fault, which extends 84 kilometers across the belt. LAURION holds 100% of the property and of 57 square kilometers and hosts a 6-kilometer mineralized corridor that we have been systematically proving zone by zone, year by year. When we refer to district scale, we are not suggesting a fully defined mining camp. What we're referring to is the scale of the mineral system we are seeing. It's a continuous 6-kilometer corridor, structurally controlled with multiple targets along strike, many of which still remain untested. This is what we believe defines the scale of the system we are working with. I'm now going to move on to another subject, and this is with respect to the strategic review process and advisor recommendations, which we press released and spoke about on a number of occasions. In August 2023, the board of directors established a special committee to undertake a comprehensive review with the objective of maximizing shareholder value. The special committee engaged a network of financial and strategic advisors to conduct a structured evaluation of a full range of strategic alternatives available to the company. The process was thorough and professionally executed, reflecting the board's commitment to exploring every avenue available to maximize outcomes for the shareholder. A very critical factor shaping the timing and outcome of that process was a substantial rise in both gold and base metal prices through 2024 and into 2025. As commodity prices increased materially, many mid-tier and senior mining companies turned their attention inward, conducting internal reviews of their existing resource inventories and project pipelines, which were being significantly revalued upward in the prevailing price environment. Companies were approached, and as a result of the increase in metals and prices in gold, indicated that they were interested, but wanted to review their own portfolios at this time. It was simply not the right timing. This was not a reflection of the quality of the Ishkade project, but it was a sector-wide response to the commodity price environment that was simultaneously improving the economics of assets everywhere, in every portfolio. The board accepted the advisor's recommendation in full. As announced on January 2026, the advancement of Ishkade through its technical milestones is now the company's principal focus for 2026. LAURION's M&A infrastructure, its special committee, and established advisor network remains in place, and the company continues and will continue to be receptive to any strategic opportunities as they arise during the progress of the development of our project. Next, I would very much like to, and I know you've all been waiting for this, and it's going to be my pleasure to introduce Vikram Jairam. I just want to give you a little bit of background because this is what relationships are to me and the board. My relationship with Vikram goes back over 16 years. And over that time, I've come to know him as someone who brings both depth of thinking and a very disciplined approach to evaluating opportunities. Vikram first engaged LAURION a few years ago in the context of a potential board role. At that time, due to technical work being carried out, it wasn't the right moment to formalize that relationship. What's important is he came back. Over several past years, Vikram has gained significant additional exposure to project financing, working closely with investors on due diligence, valuation, and financing pathways. As LAURION moves forward, we are entering a stage where technical execution must be very tightly aligned with capital efficiency, strategic positioning, and how the market ultimately evaluates the project. Vikram brings that alignment. He understands how to translate project into disciplined capital allocation, how to prepare a company for strategic alternatives, and how to ensure that technical progress is matched by institutional credibility. That is why he's working with us today. Vikram, I call upon you to the podium.
Thank you, Cynthia. Morning, everybody. My name is Vikram Jayaraman. For those of us in this hall and friends, you want to call me Vic. It's easy that way. It's simple. That was a phenomenal introduction. I have to pay her $20 after, I guess. But jokes aside, look, I'm a metallurgical engineer by training. Got my teeth in flow sheet development, doing test work to develop flow sheets, going into operations for essentially startup, ramp up, so on and so forth. So I spent a large part of my life in operations before I turned my towards essentially getting into the engineering business, in which I've essentially been for the last 9 years or so. So I'm presently, outside of my board position at LAURION, I'm the president for DRA North America. DRA is a large multinational EPCM company that specializes in advisory, project development, project execution, construction management, operations, and maintenance of mineral processing and mining facilities. So that's essentially the background of the organization that I work for. And within that organization, a large part of what we do is advisory. And advisory is specifically geared towards exact situations and cases that we're currently dealing with, which is we have an asset. The asset has a significant amount of promise. What technical work do we have to do currently that streamlines the asset and the project for showing a pathway to production? Because that's what the capital markets are really interested in right now. Having the technical clarity and having the understanding is important, but it's being able to take that information, putting it into a pathway of production that's absolutely key currently in the capital market. So the way I'm looking at my position within this board is to provide that technical streamlining, so we're not spending time or effort or money in places that's not going to necessarily add value to finding that pathway of production. And most importantly, lining up with folks, other board members like Sean that come from a capital market side to say, does this technical streamlined process of getting to a pathway of production make sense with what capital markets are expecting? And we get those two things matched up. So that's really what I'm hoping to bring to the board, and have the privilege now to work with these fine individuals over the last few months. And it's certainly an exciting company, exciting asset. I look forward to contributing more. Thank you for the opportunity.
I think that there's also a time to point out that Vikram now has taken over the reins of DRA Americas. And, you know, on behalf of the board and all of us, we congratulate you.
Thank you.
You will be very successful. The next item is I would actually like to introduce the LAURION shareholders to Sankasan Ghoshal. He's known as Sean to the board, to all of us, who's joined LAURION as a strategic advisor earlier this year. So Sean brings a very, very unique combination of mining engineering and capital markets experience. His background spans project development, mining, equity research, and today he's working within streaming and royalty space, Sprott, where he's directly involved in evaluating, structuring, and financing resource projects at scale. What stood out to us is why Sean is here today, is his ability to look at Ishkade through both a technical and capital markets lens. He understands not only how a mineral system is built, but how it's evaluated by institutional investors and strategic financing partners. As we advance this project, that perspective is increasingly important. Ensuring that our technical work, our disclosures, and our development pathway is aligned, and how the market ultimately assigns value to a key part of our strategy. Sean has helped join us to bridge that alignment and to support the board as we continue to advance the Ishkade in a disciplined value in way. Sean.
Thank you, Cynthia. That was an incredible presentation, and good morning. Yeah, I think I have to borrow it from Vikram again. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Ghoshal, and I've been in the industry for the last 13 years. And as my wife rightly put that, I'm damaged beyond repair to do anything else other than mining. The interesting part is the first half of those 13 years was in mining operations and engineering. I started my life as an underground miner, wearing a blue hat and going 650 meters underground in coal operations. Then transitioned into engineering and project development, where I met Vikram and we worked together in DRA. And then I convinced myself, and Vikram convinced me, that I am better suited for finance and markets. And I transitioned into equity analyst for a company called People Financial, where I covered mining companies, Canadian mining companies, all the way from, let's say, Tech Resources, Freeport McMoran, all the way to developers. So the entire capital markets was really eye-opening in that role, because it fundamentally changed how I look at projects, because I do come from a technical background. It's not about the technical merits of a project. It's about what sells, what is worth, and who is willing to buy it and what they're looking for. So that is a completely different question than asking, hey, this is the best product. So I was able to utilize that skill and found myself in investments in a company called Sprott Inc. And currently I am assisting in doing streaming and royalty transactions at Sprott. Essentially, we manage $1 billion of pension fund capital, all US. Thanks Canada for not letting us manage their money. And we have deployed around $800 million in mining assets at various stages, at various jurisdictions. So what I really bring to this table, and that is something that Cynthia and I have discussed at length, is I have been in rooms where big money talks. I have been in rooms where I know how they think, because essentially their due diligence, and both financial and technical, is done by me. I'm the little guy in those rooms who is doing reams of paper and analysis and accounting, financial and engineering due diligence to direct them where the money should go and where the money should not go. So this is kind of critical, because I can really marry the technical aspects of the project going to my operations and engineering background, and with the financial aspects as to will these projects sell. Because at the end of the day, everyone in this room wants a profitable exit. We understand that. But to really get to that, I think my mandate is threefold. First is, what does the most commercially attractive version of Ishkode look like? Because that is completely different from the best technical project, right? Having understood the target, my second mandate is, given what is the most capital efficient and time efficient development pathway that we can use to reach that target. Because money is important, time is money, and it's not science experiment. Having answered the second question, I think the most important question right now is, where do we get the money to finance the project, and in what structure we use that in order to preserve the upside while ensuring that the downside. So this is my mandate, and this is how I have thought of LAURION, and this is a meaningful opportunity. I do see great opportunity in this asset because of, again, I'm wearing my stock analysis of three main things. First is the jurisdiction. See, the thing with jurisdiction is it's a binary question. It's 1 or 0. You cannot engineer and optimize your way out of a bad address. And currently, it's even more topical than it was 5 years ago with the resource nationalization, and everybody wants to have their asset in Canada and in US. The second is the geological pedigree. See, LAURION is in a geological district that was previously mined. It's a historical mine that had 5 years of mining. And importantly, the mine was stopped due to World War II and not because of resource exhaustion. So there is a very high probability that we will be able to find economic ounces at scale nearby the current shaft. And we do understand that there is Greenstone mine, which I think around 100 kilometers from from the deposit. So there is potential for regional and operational synergies. We have to evaluate that. But what I'm saying is it has a high probability of success. Now, what brings me to the third point is we are not starting from scratch. We have 100,000 meters of drilling. We have a structural report, and that is way better than starting geochemical sampling on a moose pasture in the middle of nowhere, right? But what is missing is a framework to identify the most commercially attractive version of this project and tell that story clearly, with clarity, to the right audience, to the right institutional investors who have the capital, who have the wherewithal to hold this project for 10 years or 12 years, and would not just flinch it at every downturn, right? So that's where I think there is a lot of work. There is significant amount of work, but I think what LAURION has reflected in the past 1 year with the appointment of Vikram and I is there is a deliberate shift in how LAURION is conducting its business. And the technical foundation exists. There is work, but we are here to do it.
Thanks very much, Sean, for that. That was awesome. Just give me a second, guys. I just need to set up the presentation. It's not letting me do it. There we have it. So basically what you've heard this afternoon from both Vikram and from Sean, and understanding that we're entering into a very, very different market with increase in base metal prices and gold prices. Our understanding of what the advisors have said to us last year, we've taken all of this to heart, and we've made a very big push to change and develop. So yes, we're talking about a very aggressive drill program. Before I get into this, I kind of want to walk all of you shareholders through a couple of things from the Ishkay. Its location, its infrastructure advantages, and the geological and structural picture, both at the A zone through to the Sturgeon River mine and Brembar mine, and what we've actually built over the last 5 years. And I think that I really want to tell you about this because I think that this should really resonate. The amount of work that we've concluded on a very significant piece of project, which is that 6 kilometer by 2.5 kilometer corridor. So that work underpins the 2026 program, and that didn't begin just in 2020 when we started drilling. So between 2018 and 2019, LAURION executed detailed trenching and channel sampling programs across key Ishkay properties, systematically building the base and the surface data set, which would then inform our initial drill target. In parallel, we developed and validated our technical database, completed multiple geophysical surveys, and advanced our 3D geological model. This was not preliminary work. It was foundational. It established the geological framework and structural understanding of targeting confidence that began in 2020 with purpose. Over the 5 years from 2022 to 2025, LAURION has drilled approximately 51,769 meters across approximately 150 LAURION-operated holes, spanning 6 distinct zones within our 6 kilometer corridor. The all-in property, including historical operator drills, stands now at 462 holes and 98,000 meters. And here is what we accomplished each year. In 2020, we launched an exploration program, our first, with 31 holes, approximately 7,887 in the A zone. Why did we start in the A zone? Because historical operators had generated a number of targets in that area and included a lot of drill holes. We had stripped that area and its potential looked attractive. That made sense to us if we wanted to work towards a resource model. And you remember in 2020, base metal prices had not yet increased to the level that they had today. So the defining moment came in phase 2, when drill hole 2025 returned 14.25 meters at 10 grams per ton gold, including 1 meter at 102 grams per ton gold. And LME 2031 returned 70 meters at 3.9 grams per ton in the niche shear zone, including 5.4 meters at 48 grams per ton gold and a half a meter interval at 441 grams per ton gold. In 2021, we drilled approximately 24 holes, totaling 8,930 meters, and confirmed that the A zone then connected to another zone called the McLeod zone, which was roughly 1,000 meters of strike length. So we had expanded the A zone and validated that A zone, de-risked that A zone to the McLeod zone and connected that with the McLeod. So that was created through multiple intercepts. In 2022, we ran the largest campaign to that point, 46 holes and 14,215 meters, proving 3 continuous kilometers of mineralization from the A zone all the way to the CRK zone. So many of you will recollect when you went to the Eshkare. I can't remember, Roger, if you were there, or I remember many of you guys were here. You will remember how much we stripped on that CRK zone and how much channel sample we did. That was a substantial zone. So in essence, from the CRK now to the A zone, we had expanded that strike by 3 kilometers. We confirmed then that the A zone southwest extension was now 1.5 kilometers, and we extended that by 400 meters. And we established that the stacked vein system reached 600 meters in width at the McLeod zone, and identified and confirmed niche shear zone. So this is a substantial shear zone. I mentioned to you the Paint Lake Fault, which extends across the region. It's 84 kilometers. This is a very deep-seated orogenic structure which gives rise to all of the mineralization of the mines in that area, ourselves including that of held by Alamos and Greenstone's hard rock. So that niche shear zone is at a number of splays, and those splays come off that Paint Lake Fault. We discovered that niche zone, and that was a very structurally important orogenic zone for us to determine in our drilling. And that corridor was now 3.5 kilometers of strike. So in 2023, with gold prices rising materially, we made a deliberate and strategic decision then to go back and focus on the Sturgeon River mine area, a past-producing high-grade orogenic system, and completed 9 holes over 3,636 meters, and proved that instinct was correct. So the drill hole 23 and 32 returned 3.5 meters at 4.9 grams per ton, including half a meter at 186 grams per ton. The Sturgeon River is very unique in that it has a north-south vein, which was historically mined, which is why it was historically mined, because it was very, very high grade. And returning to that and developing that vein and some of the vein systems associated with that was really, really important. So in 24, we drilled 7,580 at the Sturgeon. And then in 2025, we drilled approximately 25 holes over 9,522 meters across the Sturgeon River mine area, and then the Brent Bar. And then, as a result of prices increasing at the end of last year for base metals, we returned to the A zone, had 1.7 million remaining in flow through, and we put that into very high infill targets on the A zone. So the A zone still has a number of areas which we still have yet to expand, and I'm going to demonstrate that in our presentation. So further on, let's just talk a little bit about the geophysics that we also acquired over this time. So this program is just not background technical work. It actually is the engine that generates every target that we draw on the Ishkade, because this is a structurally controlled project, complex, very folded, very altered, very fractured, and understanding and taking geophysical databases gives us that understanding of where edges and fractures are also on that project. So the survey confirmed that we had 3 mineralized trends, which directly enabled the niche discovery. In 2021, we flew a full property airborne LiDAR survey over 47 square kilometers of Ishkade. So a LiDAR is a very comprehensive topographic coverage. The LiDAR revealed several historical trenches that were probably opened several years ago in the early 30s and 40s. And this was obscured by vegetation for decades, which enabled us to channel sample and help us confirm that 1,400 meters of McLeod strike length. In 2023, we then commissioned an 882 line kilometer heliborne gradient mag survey by Precision at 50-meter line spacings, which was really close and very valuable. And this was the first complete uniform scale magnetic data set. In 2025, we wanted to understand more about the structures at depth, which was very, very important to, specifically in that area, to really understand the continuity of those structures at depth. So we completed a tightened DCIP and magnetotelluric survey with contact geoscience across 11 lines and approximately 26 kilometers, reaching depths of almost 2.5 kilometers. So we expanded the lines across the area so that we could get, and when I say expanding, we cut lines that were very long because your target is almost like a triangle. So you need the depth and you need that understanding. So we were able to get 2.5 kilometers of depth of understanding of those targets. So the result of that was 9 undrilled, very high priority IP anomaly targets across the corridor. And these are key exploration targets for 2026. So stepping back a little further, before a drill was ever brought on the project, LAURION conducted a significant amount of surface over that 6-kilometer strike. So I think many people believe that you just go and you drill your project. You really don't. You've really got to have a very, very good structural understanding of your project, particularly if it's complex. And one of the things that we note very clearly on the issue is that when we go from outcrop to outcrop, things change. And those things change because we have a lot of movement, a lot of deformation, a lot of folding. We need to understand. Because when you plan drill holes, you got to remember that your drill holes cost $350. You want to target accurately your targets. We've been very successful in doing that throughout all of the years because we have done the background work, the technical work, the hours and hours of meeting and of interpretation to understand the structure in order that we can drill very high priority targets. So I also want to then just talk about the channel sampling that we did in 2020 on this, firstly at the CRK zone. We saw some very high grades return from those channel samples, which enabled us to follow up with drilling. So such as 4.2 meters at 5 grams, 5.9 grams a ton. In 2021, we conducted mechanized stripping of the northern A zone in the northeast extension, and we completed 82 channels and 255 samples. And we revealed during that period 5 subparallel mineralized horizons. And here's the kicker, converging at a fold head, which makes that very complex, and an entirely new discovery. The pond vein at the McLeod vein, with that opening on channel samples, we opened up that strike of 130 meters. In 2022, systematic geological mapping at 1 to 2,500 scale established a 2-event mineralizing model and now guides all of the targets across the property. In 2024, stripping and channel sampling at the Sturgeon River mine returned grab sample of 73 grams per ton gold. In 2025, channel sample at Twin Falls returned 1.9 meters at 32.47 grams per ton, including 0.9 meters at 67 grams per ton gold. So speaking of the Twin Falls, I also want to just talk about the property acquisitions over the last couple of years. We have grown the Ishkade land package from 47 square kilometers in 2020 to 57 square kilometers today in 2 strategic acquisitions, both at a minimal cost. The Brennbar property was 255 hectares, contiguous to the west of the Ishkade, and hosts the historic Brennbar mine, which ran at an average of 20 grams. So this was acquired in 2019 and received first modern LAURION drilling in summer 2025 after several programs in channel sampling. The Twin Falls property that was 10.4 square kilometers to the west of Ishkade was acquired in October 2023 and validated again with channel results on the Cyril. This is a very substantial showing. This was found by Noranda, which I think probably you know the name. They had a number of property assets in that area. So the Cyril Knight was one of those. This is a very unusual, slightly different showing to in mineralization what we do have on the Ishkade. Felsic volcanics very close to Spaceport's vein and extremely prospective in terms of width. So one of the last items I want to talk about is the item of capital raising. So I honestly believe that LAURION has done an amazing job of capital raising over the last 5 years. So we've raised 19.9 million between 2020 and 2025 through very disciplined flow through share financing year over year. So for a small company, this is significant. And I also want to point out and from Tyler, 90% of those dollars went into the ground. We do not spend on fluff. And this is very important to us that money that we generate is focused and goes into the ground today. Turning now to the 2026 exploration program. This is probably going to be the most ambitious program of LAURION's history. And why? You heard what Vikram and Sean had to say. We're living in very different times. It is, and in a time where we know that senior miners are going to be acquisitive. They're going to be looking for projects to replenish their reserves. This is the time to make that very concerted change into upping our game in doing a lot of drilling in this year. So that being said, it is conditional on financing. So as mentioned in the March 2026 press release, subject to financing, the 2026 exploration program is expected to utilize a dual rig approach to systematically advance priority targets across the Ishkade mineralized corridor. So the program reflects a very disciplined, phased strategy focused on expanding the known system, testing high priority targets, and continue to build geological confidence required to support future technical milestones, which we have set for ourselves. So phase 1 is going to be mobilization of a single rig with 2 focused objectives. First, we're going to advance the A zone towards resource definition hole spacings using structurally corrected drill orientations derived from our structural vectoring reinterpretation of the corridor. This approach is also going to deliver the first genuinely corrected oriented tests of 3 A zone northeast sub-targets, the Myron zone, the Taller zone, and the river showing. These targets were drilled between 1970 and 1980s, but in the management's assessment, were never properly tested due to systematic and structural misorientation. So they missed the target, they missed the plunge. Why? Because it's folded, and they probably directed their drilling below a folding. But having looked at those targets, those are exceptional targets and warrant definite additional targeted drilling. So second phase will also test the Sturgeon River mine, an area with structurally corrected orientations, and we will continue to expand the 1100 meter corridor. So the phase 2 corridor scale testing, this is designed to test the scope of the program through an addition of a second drill rig, again, subject to financing, and to systematically test a broader set of very high priority targets across the Ishkadai corridor, including the 9 undrilled IP anomaly targets identified in the 25 DCIP and the magnetotelluric survey. The decision to test these targets prior to advancing towards a resource reflects a deliberate and disciplined approach evaluating the broader target portfolio, and is important to ensure that any future resource properly reflects the scale and the potential of our mineral system. Without further ado, I'm also going to take you through a presentation. It's not a long presentation. What is interesting, this has been created by Verify. This was part of our previous PGO, Jean-Philippe Paimon. He moved on from Mira Geoscience, creating our 3D models, and went to Verify. They are now focused on developing 3D modeling and AI modeling for the industry. So we've been working with them very closely. Okay, so first slide, and I want to talk firstly to this slide. So this is the region which we located. This is the Greenstone, the Beardmore Geraldton and Ornament Shoulder Belt. Just directly below the Ishkadai property, as you can see, there is a structure that traverses the property right to the east. In the Geraldton area that is approximately 80 kilometers to the east of us, is located the Hard Rock property, which is currently mining, and they have producing sort of about 27,000 tons per day of material, and are probably going to be one of the best known projects that have the cheapest operating costs. So this is Highway 11, which extends north from Toronto, heads up all the way up to Thunder Bay, and of course across to the east, Geraldton, Hearst, down to Cochrane, Timmins, and all the way down to Toronto. So the address is very, very key here. We are located 11 kilometers just off Highway 11 and 28 kilometers northeast of the town of Beardmore. Within the town of Beardmore, LAURION holds 2 properties, 2 houses, and a very substantial core logging facility. Having ownership of that eliminates a lot of costs. We were very successful in acquiring these addresses. Obviously, property values are not exceptionally high in that area. We were able to buy a substantial 3-car garage, with the sector being for an RV, so very high roof. And we are able to log almost a kilometer and a half a day within that. That's pretty substantial. I also want to show you that we are also in the area proximal to our 3 First Nations, the Animigu, Sagiga, and Anishinaabeg, the Bingui, Niashi, and Anishinaabeg, and further to the southwest is the Bajintuit, Zagiga, and Anishinaabeg. So those are our first 3 nations. We have an exceptional relationship with them, and also an exploration agreement. We definitely hire from all of our First Nations. They help us within our channel sampling, exploration in the field, and as well as core cutting, and conducting some of the orientation as well. So we are within sort of like 11 kilometers up of Highway 11. The access within the project is 12 kilometers up on the 801. This is a very well-maintained gravel highway. It's maintained by CN Railway, and of course the logging industry, which is very present in that area. Throughout the property, we have access roads to each and every area, which means that we are able to access any part of the project. So that is the 57 square kilometers of the Ishkadai project. So the point of showing you this slide is for you to understand that we are, number one, we are in a tier 1 jurisdiction. we're in an area that produced a lot of ounces from, I think it was almost 19 mines that operated throughout that area. So 4.1 million tons, which came actually from those 19 mines. 2 of those are hosted on the Ishkade project. So, you know, pause on that. That is really significant because, you know, that sort of demonstrates that there was significant activity within that area. The Hard Rock property, I think they have approximately 5 historic past producers on their project. This is the town of Beardmore. I included the slide because I kind of wanted you to kind of see what it is, where we are living, and I'm just kind of run this video. Sorry, this didn't help. Run this video. So nobody drives that fast, by the way. But so this is the town of Beardmore. I want to show you where we are. Like, this is one of our houses, and right at the back here is our core facility. This is where we log our core. So this is the main highway right there in the background. So great access to our project. This is the total claims and leases for the Ishkade project. So initially, the project was 635 hectares, which we acquired roughly about 2007. The Sturgeon River mine was on that core 635 hectares. And at the time, we knew nothing about that project. It was dead and buried since they closed the mine in 1942. And all I had was a roll of plans from sinking of the shaft, and those were the level plans with all of the geology and veins. That's all I had. And we then stepped out, completed some prospecting in and around the project, and our first insight into the base metals was just to the northeast of the shaft, where we fell on sort of like a very significant outcrop of copper and zinc and gold. So these are our core leases. These are renewable in years 2030, 2032, 35, 37, and 39. They are all in very good standing. The lighter yellow are claims. And you know, I can safely say that given all of the work that we've conducted on the project, we have banked 11.8 million in assessment credits on this project. Now that is very significant. I think that for any buyer, the first questions that you ask is, you know, what is your ownership? You know, talk a little bit about your tenure. What have you done on your tenure? We only have to spend on the claims. Yeah, 7.8 million is going to go a very, very long way. That, to me, would be very important to any buyer. This is the location of the Sturgeon River mine. We have the 801 bursting the project to the north, and the Sturgeon River mine and the Brembar mine on the west side. So we have what we call a bimodal project. We have an orogenic area, and we have an area that is predominantly base metal. So to just inadvertently to the east of the 801, that whole area is predominantly a gold-rich base metal area, and then the Sturgeon River mine and Brembar are predominantly gold. So I'm going to talk a little bit just now about the geology. It's not going to be that important to you, but it's key. So this is the LiDAR survey that I alluded to. This survey is one of the most valuable surveys that we have done over and above any of the geophysical. Why? Because this sort of defines, in layman's terms, kind of strips all of your overburden off the LiDAR, so you can actually see where your structures are. You could actually zoom into any particular area, and you can look at trenching work that was done. So you can see that there's been trenching work done historically. So this is a very, very valuable piece of geophysics that we acquired. What is also very important with this is that you can actually see displays in the structure. So this the Namawamikan River, which is a major structure and a very key structure on the Ishkade. This is the river. So we have got several mineralized targets associated with the river, specifically in the area just north of the shaft. You see these oxbows. So and obviously you can understand that there's a lot of being condensed, pushed together, deformed. There's been a lot of movement. You can see with the LiDAR, you can see these northeast, sort of southwest type structures. So this is very, very important to us in understanding the location and mineralization of our project. To the north of the project, and these are areas that we haven't really spent a lot of time in. You can see a very, very strong structure to the north. We know that associated with the river are more of the gold copper structures. So we see sort of like zinc and silver on this side. So we believe it's sort of like stratabound. As you kind of go to the north, you transition over into sort of like a more hotter, if I can say, environment that will produce your gold copper. I'm sort of trying to not try to be so technical, which is kind of a little bit hard, but so now I'm going to take you into the underground. So this is the Sturgeon River mine, which operated between 1936 and 1942. And I know that many of you have read about this, but this is they drilled down to they sort of developed down to the 2,100 foot level, 640 meters, and essentially the red areas are those areas which at this time is unmined. And remember that I've said those areas are unmined. That's very important. This is the cross section of the Sturgeon River. So they did a development in this area, and they lost the vein round about the 500 foot level, and got back into it around about the 750 foot level. And then the bottom of the shaft, as you can see, they prepared all of the stopes, the boxes. Those are the boxes. So at the bottom. And what they also encountered was other vein systems. So how do I translate this to you? So they mined just the number 3 vein, which was this very high grade, very different north-south vein, very different to the northeast southwest veins. They mined this high grade vein, and this was the focus. And as they got down to the 1,000 foot level and below that, they started to encounter other veins. So it's like almost as though if I took a tree and I inverted it, you're starting to see these other branches. I fundamentally believe that the potential for us to see additional vein sets at depth is very, very possible. So they sort of encountered approximately 4 or 5 different vein sets, and we have now defined across that small Sturgeon River corridor 9 other mineralized quartz veins and structures. I'm just going to turn this to the side so that you can kind of just see. Oops, be very careful when you do this. So this is just the side where they developed, and you can see that there was a very change as they got kind of down to the 500 foot level where they actually lost the vein. The shaft starts to rotate. And this is the thing with the Ishkade, is that there is so much movement, and that rotation of the shaft, and they didn't have MREs and feasibility studies, and they sunk the shaft on the vein, and then they followed that vein. We would never do a thing like that in today's market. We would have to have feasibilities, drill holes. They found the vein, sunk the shaft, and this is how they developed this mine. So you can see the bottom levels. There's something happening on the bottom levels. The shaft is rotating. What we've also noticed is that in this area it starts to flatten out. So when I say to you that the importance of drilling and doing surface work and looking at your surface structures and understanding the faults, That's so important before you even drill a hole, because you're going to miss your target. 100% you're going to miss your target. So going back to the surface stockpile, and here's another very key aspect. This stockpile was generated from the material that was sunk by the shaft down to the 2100 foot level. So material that came out of the shaft. And there is approximately, so the 2013 technical report reported 144,000 tons and at a grade of 1.5 grams from the surface stockpile. We have since opened up other areas, completed sonic drilling in 2018, which is very important on the stockpile. This was to validate and update the 2013 technical report, give us more information on the consolidated, unconsolidated rock and the grade within the surface stockpile. We found in that 2018 survey, extending it almost an additional tonnage, which was now 190,000 tons. So I believe, having done the reverse engineering of the stockpile and the shaft material that is taken out, calculations, that there is roughly about 220 tons, roughly in and around the shaft area. So pause on that. So if it's 1.5 grams and it came from the shaft, and this was waste, because what did they mine? They only mined the so they drifted out, came inside of the quartz vein, blasted out the host rock, grey rock, and popped out the quartz vein and put to surface. And then what they did is they optically sorted the quartz vein, because that's all they wanted, is just the quartz vein material. That 1.5 grams that is on that stockpile is actually, if you think about it, this was just post rock. So added to that and the quartz veins, which we have now found across that sort of like corridor of the Sturgeon River, this is a lot of value. This is an incredible amount of value to us, because now we know that our widths and ability to mine at wider widths, and not just the 30-inch mining widths that they mined in the 30s and 40s, it has that capacity. So this is the surface stockpile. As you can see, that it's pretty significant. Just to the left here, this is the number 2 vein. The main shaft vein, the number 3 vein, the shaft is right behind these trees. This is goes straight up to the north, and this is kind of part of that number 3 vein to the north. So this is the. I'm going to run this video as well. So as you can see, it's a very, very significant stockpile. You stand on it, it's at least 20-25 meters above the tree level, and that is not me, by the way. Turning our attention now to the Brenbar mine, which is approximately a kilometer to the west of the Bay. So the Brenbar didn't operate for as long a period as the Sturgeon River mine. They did sink down to the 2010 foot, 64 meters, and executed a lot of drifts. Had a lot of issues in following that particular vein, and the issues were because it's very, very hot. So Brenbar again is completely different in its geological environment to that of the Ishkade. The Ishkade is in sort of intermediate volcanics, whereas the Brenbar area is in felsic volcanics, very, very sheer, very altered, very folded. And I think then looking at how they sort of started to mine this, they must have had a really good time. This particular image is very significant in that you can see the Sturgeon River mine in the background. So we are about a kilometer apart. One of the current opportunities here, which we've been working on with channel sampling in this area, is connecting the mineralization and the corridor between the Brenbar and the Sturgeon River mine shaft. So this is a little bit about the geology, and I don't want to dwell too much on this. So we have a very significant intrusive just to the east here. This is the Foyer Lake. So these intrusives are very, very important in our environment. These are heat engines. These heat engines actually bring bring in the mineralization. So this, what you see here, is the corridor that we are busy focused on, and this gives you more insight into what that corridor looks like. So from this particular image, which is that sort of the width of the corridor is 2.5 kilometers. So the most important is the Sturgeon River structure to the north, and this is the niche structure just to the south. And encompassed within these, to go back and forward again. And encompassed within those structures, we have other sort of like northeast, southwest structures, and what we would call probably what Rydell's or pull apart structures within this. Those are very important for us to understand our mineralization. As you can see from this corridor, we have identified several zones which we have been working on and completed substantial drilling. There's a little bit of background on this, and this is just more for the layman, so that you understand exactly what the mineralizing is for on the project. So we had initially the base metals come in its own tech event, bringing in sort of like gold, silver, copper, and zinc, and sort of like in an epithermal style. And then approximately 20 million years later, we had a gold event coming in, bringing in that next event of the north-south, not north-south, so northeast, southwest structures, and then a later overprinting event, which was the north-south vein. So there was a lot of events on the project. So this is why the project itself has both mineralizing systems, so both the base metal and the orogenic. So this is the epithermal center of the base metals on the project. So we were able to identify and include that into our model. So this is those of you who have walked the property, this is the CRK zone. And I just kind of want to just pause. So you can actually see the structures if you from the drone. So you can actually see the structures on the CRK. And you can actually see some of the quartz veining. You see the folding within the quartz veins, and sometimes very, very hard to follow sort of structurally because of the change. So you can see very, very strong structures that are going multi directions. It's very important for us to strip and understand this in order to have developed our understanding of the epithermal intrusive center. As you can see right in the center, this was exactly the video that I showed you. So this is quite a substantial intrusive center. The McLeod zone that I refer to is in this area, and the A zone is up here in the north. So we've completed a substantial amount of drilling, and it kind of probably looks by appearances that you'd be fairly close to building a resource with it. But I want to tell you that because of the structure, it looks a bit like a dog's breakfast at times. And there are still a number of areas that require some infill. So these are the great shells which we have derived from our drilling. I pointed out to you several areas that we will want to drill. You can see several gaps in these areas. These areas are very critical for us to complete the drilling, so that we can develop the A zone model as a whole. So that's kind of what that looks like. So you can see the drilling. And when I show people this, when they look at this, they really see the magnitude of how much work we've executed on this project. And I think this is the reason why I've chosen this verify AI system to kind of show you what that looks like. This is our channel sampling. So as you can see, we did a lot of channel samples across the project to get a really good understanding of the mineralization before we commence drilling. This is the A zone right in the north. So you can actually see that we stripped this area, trying to interpret where all the veins were. And as you can see, following them at times were very, very difficult. That being said, we got some incredible values and grades out of the A zone. So if you have a look at the A10 we got some pretty high grade values out of all of that stripping. Going on to the orogenic corridor. So this is the overprinting of orogenics on the base metals. So we do see quartz veining up in the A zone, although not as much as going to the southwest. And as you can see, it's kind of folded. There's a lot of movement happening within that system. So these are some of the quartz veins that we have found, which some of you have also seen, are very wide, very substantial. You see some of the work that we have completed on this zone, and finding some of the quartz veins. So that's what they look like. So so very wide quartz vein. So it's a lot different in the east. The veins are a lot closer, a lot proximal to one another, and very well sheared. So you're finding mineralization in between the shears and the veins, which is very important. So again, here are these sort of like northeast southwest structures, what we call these Rydels or pull apart structures. This is how we develop our 3D model in order for us to understand what controls the mineralization in the area and how to approach our drilling. So this is the DEM model. This is the digital elevation model from the LiDAR. So this shows you the Sturgeon River mine area, which is a very significant mineralized system. You can see right across that corridor. So stratigraphically, we have drilled right across the corridor to define all of those 9 vein sets to get a really good understanding of the presence and be able to get oriented measurements of each of those veins. The next step here, apart from continue to develop the number 3 vein, which continues, by the way, to the northeast, apart from following that up, is our focus is now to change up our drilling to do very targeted drilling into the areas where we see sort of dilation zones. In other words, where we see zones that are expanding, and focusing on some of the plunges that we have seen. So looking at, this is the model of the Sturgeon River mine, and maybe you'll get a little bit of appreciation of why this becomes so difficult to drill. So this is the number 3 vein, and then you've got these other vein sets. Now I want you to just look closely. I mean, this is plunging in that direction. This is going in this direction. This is in another direction. So trying to drill all of these in sort of like in one complete drill program is impossible. You have to step back and be very focused on how you approach, but you have to drill across the stratigraphy in order to understand, define your very targeted drilling. So this is the drilling that we've completed on the Sturgeon River mine. And actually see there's mineralization associated with the niche zone, niche shear zone, and you also see that we've executed a lot of stripping and channel sampling in this area as well. And yeah, I guess just a reminder again, we've probably spoken about a number of things today, forward-looking statements. And we want you to appreciate that it's we're very energetically trying to develop the project as best as we can, and we don't have crystal balls. And yeah, that, ladies and gentlemen, I think is probably the end of our presentation today. So I'm going to open the floor to questions. Any questions? Anybody?
I have a question. You were saying before, and again, a lot of pharmacists that don't know this business, and also thank you for dumbing it down.
Chemist.
I didn't say it was a bit. So you were talking about things like you have these leases, and you said something about something like 10 million footage or something, and you boast. What does that actually mean?
What does it mean? So under Ontario regulations. In order for you to hold, you are required to do X amount of work. What do you know what it is, Danielle? Is it 600? Is it 600? Is it 600 or $400? $400. So $400 per claim every 2 years. And it doesn't sound like much, but when you've got a very significant area, that can amount to a lot. And a lot of people typically stake and hold on to claims because they anticipate that through closeology, somebody is going to come along and will pick this off you, and they're going to ride off into the sunset with a bag of money. It's not realistic. So we have to, on all of those claims, execute an amount of assessment work. So how we do that is because we have 57 square kilometers. Everything is contiguous. We execute most of our drilling within that 6 kilometer corridor, and we are able to push those credits out to cover our whole area, our whole claim and lease area. You say own.
Yeah.
Very careful when you say own. So we do not own land. We do hold the surface rights and the mineral rights specifically on the lease areas, but we do not own that land. It is owned by the Crown, and the First Nation will say it is owned by the First Nations.
The government support what's the matters at hand. Year.
Didn't do anything.
Hey, stop. Was asking because that's the problem. Allow yourself credits.
Cynthia, why did you pick up all the land to the west, outside of the corridor? I mean, it's a significant piece of, like, are there any showing up there or these structures?
As I was pointing out, there's a lot of constraints. There has been spread drilling. We have covered a lot of that area with grabs. In fact, that whole area has been done with grabs. There's a lot of interest to the north of the river because of we think because it was work done. And again, you're not talking about a lot of these closeness sports fans they're very skilled. So you're looking for what in that area. And also note. Sorry, yeah, okay. Sorry. Janelle asked why we picked up all of that land, and we picked up that land because it was prospective, not because it was important for us to grow a land package. That is not what we do. We picked up land in the area because it was prospective, because we went out, we prospected, we acquired all of the assessment reports. We went back historically to all of the work that was done in that area. And in particular, like I was mentioning, the Twin Falls is very, very attractive because there was significant focus in that area.
You can't hear because it's close.
Oh, I didn't know that. It was that one. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm not sure how. I think you're still. Am I still on? Okay, I hope I'm still on. I'm sorry, guys, if I shut the computer. I didn't mean to do that. Forgot about the Zoom, so apologies for that. So the Twin Falls hosts gold prospectivity, which is why.
Steve, 2 parts to my question. The first part of the question is, I heard you describe the history of the work that's been done right to date.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to one of our initial speakers, when they talked about capital markets and what potential projects, can you comment on what your understanding of the gaps, the difference between where you are today and what potential acquirers are looking at? Is there a list of 3 or 4 things that are missing? Is it?
Well, I think money first of all, money is the big thing. Okay, so, all right, so sorry. Steve, your question, so would you just say that a little bit louder?
Yeah, sure. My question relates to comments earlier about what potential acquirers are looking for and the work that you've done today. Are there 3 or 4 gaps, things that are on the checklist? You're going to have to do this, we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to do that. Someone could comment on what gaps. That's the first part of it.
I think first of all, to me as a CEO, the most important time is now. We've got to monetize this opportunity in the market when we know where the prices are, both base metals and gold, and that we have that significant opportunity and we are at the right address. That is number one, is a huge checkbox, which I know that institutional investors do look at. The gap for us is raising that amount of money, and I'm going to be candid about it, raising that amount of money to do that kind of work. And I think that we do have that opportunity. And why do I say that? Is because we've de-risked the area. Essentially, we've drilled across that whole project. You've seen the drilling, and we know where the mineralization is. The project is de-risked. So that opportunity to be able to demonstrate to investors, we've done the work. We do have a surface stockpile, which is a potential asset that we can monetize. We have opportunities, Steve. So I think that if that was the only gap, I would say is the access to capital. However, we've never gone to sleep after last year. We continue to meet people. We are continue to work on developing relationships towards monetization in some way of maybe the asset and bringing in money for each day.
People we've talked to said it's awesome. Like everybody likes what we've done, but they're saying we have to get to that MRE to get to that next level in order for us to engage under our protocol. And that's what Vikram and Sean brought to the table. It's a clear path on identifying how we do that.
Millions of dollars, 6 months a year.
Oh.
You raise equity, or you would borrow the money, but monetize the stockpile. Combination.
So maybe if I can add a bit of light to the question, Steve, I'll steal the mic. Okay. So the others can hear. So just to reiterate the first part of the question, I know there's a second part, so I'll hang on to that for a second. So what are institutional investors, operating mines that are looking at reserves replacement potentially, B, and C, let's say the more non-traditional financiers looking at, right? So typically what they're looking for are 3 things. The first thing they want to understand is contiguity. Is the mineralization continuous potentially? And is it strike? Can this potentially become a district level asset where there's a significant upside? So if a regular shareholder walks in, they want to be in a position to exit what I internally call as a 10-banger. Put in $10, you want to walk out with $100. That's typically the kind of things that investors, so continuity and contiguity. When you heard Cynthia speak to this morning with respect to the Sturgeon River mine, the A zone, and going in and doing some additional work in the CRK. So those are all to try and get a sense of is there contiguity at depth and at strike, right? So the preliminary indications clearly indicate that it's there. Contiguity is checked out. The second thing the capital market looks for are the following, right? So when you go and walk into a meeting to say I have an asset, the first question they're going to say is how many ounces? So that's internally what in the market we refer to as a maiden resource system, right? Where a maiden mineral resource system, where typically you have enough grid density to be able to go in and say, we infer based on the information we currently have, we have X million tons equating to Y million ounces or Y or Z million ounces equivalent if we happen to have like copper, lead, and zinc polymetallic, right? So that's what makes this project interesting is that you have orogenic, which is a greenstone kind of stuff, which people would essentially put through a cyanide processing to get doré on the back end. And then you have the more polymetallic stuff, which you would have a different kind of processing. It finds its way into the likes of the horn smelters because they are processed different. The first question they're going to ask is, how many ounces? So the plan that's being worked out internally right now is to say, what do we have to do at this point of time with respect to time, money, and efforts, given the drilling that we have done up to this point, to get to a resource estimate potentially that's going to be appetizing for the capital markets? Is it, again, we don't want to put any numbers here that's going to anchor us at this point of time. Is it 500,000 ounces? Is it 1 million ounces? Is it 100,000 ounces? Those are the kind of things we are vetting from the market to see if we have to go down to the path of an MRE. What does the capital market are requiring such that we anchor at a spot that will improve valuation, not potentially detrimental, right? So that's the path that's being taken and considered as we speak. So that was the second part. It's getting 2 ounces at the end of the day. The third thing, I can't say this enough, it's a pathway to production. It's one thing to say I have the ounces, but the other thing is to say, how am I going to get those ounces out? Am I putting up a plant here? Am I sending it somewhere else? Is it a combination of? That is something the markets look at. But the first step of the way to increase and improve valuation is to show that these drilling can yield an ounces number, which is what this board is diligently working on right now. Hopefully that clarifies the question partially.
Yes, very good. Yeah, thank you. That's I'd like to add a few things. So I come from a quantitative background, and let me put you some hard numbers on what sells, right? For an asset, on the mining asset, what sells is a mine life that is greater than 10 years. I'm talking about gold asset. An NPV to capex ratio of greater than 1. And then you have an internal rate of return after tax that is greater than 30%. So this is the target that we are trying to achieve or endeavoring to get to there, because this is what sells. From this target, we can reverse engineer to figure out, okay, given this is what sells, how much ounces we need to reach to this bracket, that the sweet spot that market will either finance more, and the big money would want to say, okay, here we are, we can either take a look into this asset and buy it, or you have to make the asset bigger. So you have optionality once you reach that spot. And to do that, you need a hard number. And the entire 2026 and our esteemed members of the board is trying to get to that number, the resource number, not the economic metrics, right? So this is, if you are looking for those hard numbers, this is what I would say that markets are looking for. That is saleable.
Thank you. And the second part of my question is, how long has it been where you guys collectively have gone out and not paying appropriate euros and said, here's our story, here's our plan, here's the going on for a year, 3 years, 6 months, 2 weeks?
It's a part of your function as a CEO. Yes, you do that. But I have to say that during COVID, was that difficult to do? Absolutely. I mean, there was a period during COVID, before and after, where nobody really wanted to talk to you. It was difficult to raise money, but you couldn't go out and meet people. But it's part of everything that we do. So I think that if I look at my role as a CEO, how do I define my role? It's exploration, which constitutes the most of it, because that's the asset, investor relations or corporate development, and then administrative work. So those are the 3 core areas. And broken down within there are a number of other subsets. But it's part of our life to go out and present to different people.
Just to be clear, so since we've seen this new plan, how long has that plan been on?
But you call it a new plan. I mean, developing Ishkade, the asset, has always been the plan. Has always been the plan. It's never been anything else, Steve. I don't know what to say to you. It's always been the plan. It's been evolved.
It's involved. It has been gone out. We've continually gone out and approached investors. And the process is involved. If you're asking, have we taken this out into the market for the market right now? Just we get started. Moving forward, we're trying to identify the strongest point. We're trying to identify what that is. So it's just been an ongoing process, and it is an ongoing process. That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, and the thing is, again, it goes back to price, prices, and people are so focused on critical minerals and gold. Since the change in Basel III, there's even more focus on physical gold. Correct. So I mean, this is even more for us now than ever because we have two incredible orogenic assets. Roger.
Question started. I don't know, John, if you're
You have to talk louder.
I think for you, the easiest might be just to repeat.
John, I don't know if you're trying to make that answer, but what's the quantum? You say millions, is it 10 million or 100? And we're already paid for use of this 2026 campaign is based on financing. Where are we?
We're commencing drilling in May. Anyway, I mean, that's the plan. We're commencing drilling in May. So we do have money in the treasury. I have 1.3 million left from flow through financing we raised in December, and we will commence, but we're still raising money in the interim.
What is that quantum?
Of what? The quantum of what
Each raise to execute 2026.
In total, our plan, if we're going to do about 50,000 meters, we're looking roughly around a figure of 18 million. So that was the question we're going to ask. So how much would 50?
Yes.
Yeah, 18.
Where are we? We have, maybe you can't say.
I can say. We're working on, obviously, discussions with several people at this time, and we have, obviously, plans in place. We have to exercise them, and I can't give you an answer to that.
More generalistic than are you optimistic that you're going to achieve it by 2026?
Anybody want to comment?
I get the comment to that. Yeah, I'm very optimistic. You look at the gold markets, you look at the activity, you look at changes that are and conversations that we're having are very positive. And we will achieve the goal. It's not easy. So here to tell you that it is. It's a fight every day, but we're in that fight every day, and we're making progress.
Roger, you can't back us into a corner and say when, how, what. It doesn't work like that. We're not in control of that. We are working hard on several fronts because this is what we've been doing for ages. Think what Doug and I do together, going to conferences, meeting up with other mining companies. And I do want to point out that being, again, we go back to address. We're right in the Geraldton belt. We've got the hard rock property that has claims and leases directly below us, and Alamus to the north. So we're well enclosed with two very senior producers. And do you think that we're not being watched? We're absolutely being watched. I know that because I've been at conferences and we've spoken to different people. So yes, I think we're being watched, but we do have to generate and prove up our resource. That is going to be really critical to us to move forward.
I just want to make a point that over the last 5 years, Cynthia made a point that there's been $19+ million that have been raised for LAURION. It's never been an issue to raise money for exploration for LAURION. So I just want to say that confidently I can say that that's not going to be an issue moving forward. It hasn't been an issue in the past, and we don't expect it to be an issue in the future. So I think just looking at the track record, and a lot of that credit goes to Cynthia, that this money has been raised to get us to the point where we're currently at 98,000 meters that have been drilled currently. And we obviously have this plan that's been put forward for another 50,000 meters to drill. And the money will be raised to get there. There's been harder times to raise money in the past than there is now. So.
Yeah, one other thing that I kind of didn't discuss with you. So we've been working on the permit since 2020. So, and I remember when I started this process of, inserting the groundwater wells in 2018 so that we could start doing the baseline data collection of water. Everybody said I was insane. You know, what are you planning on doing? And I said, well, the stockpile is going to be an asset. And I think that up until 2024, they were still telling me that. Now look at it today. It's definitely an asset. And we've completed all of our baseline work, and the permit has been submitted and it's under review. So what we're looking at now is a permit for the processing for the surface stockpile. And the importance of that is that we can determine, once we've got that, is when we would like to process that stockpile and how. You know, and you can, we have that opportunity to determine that. And then the second thing is the second permit, which is the permit to take water, is to empty the shaft of water to actually access the shaft and reevaluate each of the levels to get a really good understanding, also to help us with our approach in drilling and to determine the potential extraction and validation of the remaining ounces in the shaft. So historically, there's roughly somewhere between 80,000 and 100,000 ounces in the bottom of the shaft that they prepared. You remember I showed you the cross section. I said they had prepared the stock, they prepared the boxes. So there is an additional asset that we would like to look at and access. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Roger? Go ahead, fire away. That's what we're here for.
I want to deal with the elephant. And we can talk about projections and what we think value is. But in the end, the value of the company is its shares. Please justify this slide.
Okay. And this is not an easy question for me to justify, because I know that over the last couple of years I've supported the stock. So essentially what we're seeing out there, and we have mostly family insiders and friends that own the larger portion of the stock. So what we have is probably a pretty small portion, which could be anywhere between 20-30% of the stock. And these are probably small players. I can't control it. We can't control that. No matter how much we have gone out and presented, the stock is the stock. What can we do better is continue to find champions that will support LAURION, continue to develop the Ishkade. I 100% am confident when we start doing that project, and I know that having validated a lot of the areas, that the targets that we're looking at will generate good results. We should see the response of that. That is the best answer I can give you. I want to see the momentum. I want to see the opportunities. The minute we announce that the permit is completed, and all of a sudden we really have an asset that we can monetize, that is a big plus for us. So I think that we've got a lot of things happening on the Ishkade at this time. Buy stock. There's the answer. Go buy stock. Support the stock. That's the only answer I can give you, is that, you know, I've done that whenever I've been able to. I've exercised my stock options, put money in the company. You know, that's what you need to do. Go buy stock. Go support the stock.
Cynthia,
Yes,
are you considering any joint venture partners or strategic partners? Is that part of your vision at all? Like if Alamos came to you, if Green Rock, I mean, you do have lots of people. Oh no, I'm asking.
Repeat the question. So the question was, will you consider any joint ventures, strategic partners with any of the other companies that are around? You suggested Alamos, Equinox.
Yeah, there's lots of them. Yeah.
Sure.
So, you know, and the possibilities there, but you know, who is that? Who is that person? If it's an Equinox, why would we say no? If it's an opportunity, like you see with a lot of the mining companies, like the larger mining companies, they are actually deploying capital to other projects. I know Agnico Eagle's been doing that. Rob McEwen's been doing it. Yeah. So, why would we not accept that opportunity?
I should have said, are you ready for that potential approach also?
Absolutely.
Something you have to take.
I mean, it's really all in the agreement at the end of the day. We always go, but on the other hand, it's all in the agreement. What kind of agreement they go. What I do not want and what I will fight to the death with. This is not going to be an asset that has a problem. We've got a strong treasury, and there is absolutely no reason for us to sell cheaply. So there's a lot of things that we can do, and we can continue to do. So obviously, the offer of a joint venture has to be strong.
What positions that? That's the top. That's the that's what they're going to
And how long what are the timelines to mine your stockpile?
We can't get into that at this time. We obviously do have thoughts and plans with respect to this, but it's not something that I can kind of disclose it today. Mm-hmm. Andrew?
You were saying it has to be a strong offer. Any way you can tell us, like, what would constitute a strong offer? Sorry.
Okay, so let me turn this around. So I'm a shareholder that holds 17 million shares. Together with my family, that's 30 million shares. That's a very strong argument that I want to know we are going to receive the best offer. That's all I can tell you. I can't tell you until that offer comes in through the door. But what I can tell you is that I'm very, very driven to ensure that you as shareholders who've been with us for so many years are going to walk away, like me, with the best offer possible. We're not looking for a takeover. We're not looking to be shoved aside. We are not a distressed asset, and I'm not going to allow anybody to perceive us as such. Yeah. Oh, please.
So one of your questions, just to repeat for the group, was, like what would you be looking for in terms of what would be deemed to be like a good offer? You're a hockey guy. We were talking about the Leafs and whatnot. I think you look at it that way. That would be like, the GM, like Tree Living or whatever, being like, okay,
Not the GM anymore.
yeah, exactly. So like, who would you take for Austin Matthews? Like, you don't want to. There's so many permutations, so many ways to structure a deal. Even more so in the mining space. You don't want to, you could go down many, many rabbit holes, and just strategically, you wouldn't necessarily want to, disclose everything that you would be considering in your plans from a negotiation perspective. I think the key to all of this is that the board and management have the stakeholders of the company in their best interests. Clearly, nobody's more aligned with the best interests of the company than, Cynthia and her friends and family and members of the board as well. Exactly. So like, there is alignment there. And that, I think, is what makes the LAURION story unique. I mean, obviously, there's always going to be some principal shareholders and significant shareholders. But I think LAURION, more than most other public company in the mining space, there's a tremendous amount of alignment and buy-in in what's happening there. I guess this is sort of related, but I think there have been questions in the past about, like, can you give us more updates? Can you let us know about this or what's happening? And I think that, taking a step back in my lawyer hat on, I don't think practically it would be beneficial to capital markets at all. In fact, it would be terrible for capital markets if there was a requirement to basically give these updates in terms of negotiations when it's totally up in the air, right? Like you want negotiations that are material when they're binding and you actually have something. Jeff and I were just talking recently. Negotiations are like a tennis match, right? Like every time you return the serve, like, do you have to go tell people what's happening? Like, I don't think that's helpful to you, and I don't think that's helpful to us. It's not helpful to anybody. And so even from an investor standpoint, you could be swayed wrongfully on something that's not concrete. Often it's the regulators that are, kind of scrutinizing decisions by boards to press release things that are non-binding. Because the idea is like, oh, like I've got a paper in the back of the napkin type of a transaction. It's totally non-binding and it's fluff, but I think that this could do short-term good for our stock. And then they announce these, non-binding press releases. In an M&A transaction, the typical way that you go about it is, you sign an NDA, you look under the hood on a preliminary basis of the car that you're buying, if you will. You come to terms, you negotiate a non-binding LOI, term sheet, and even then, it's still too difficult to kind of pin down. It's not a baked deal. And so even then, at that point, once you have a signed LOI, you do further due diligence and you negotiate a binding agreement. And when you have an actual binding agreement, that's when the regulators are like, okay, well, that's material, right? Like now people need to know about this. That's how you announce an M&A deal. And so like often if you're seeing these things, it is rare and sometimes seen as aggressive to press release at the LOI stage, because even at that point, a lot of people can be swayed in terms of what they're doing with the stock, whether to buy, whether to sell. But, they're basing it on something that in reality is still very much up in the air and subject to many different factors.
Right, I would go to rebuttal for you. So first of all, I would trade Matthews from McKinnon and McCarr in a second. McDavid in a second, there it is. Second of all, I've been involved in this for a long time. This is my retirement plan. I'm sure it is probably yours too. So just wanted to see, first of all, how it would answer that question. And second of all, it would be just nice to hear something positive. Like this year, we'll get the MRE done. We're gonna get a permanent on the stockpile, and you'll be just was looking for something positive, and that's all.
Yeah.
This has been a long time for.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for Cynthia. So.
Yeah. So that's it. That's what I asked.
Yeah.
I totally understand the fact you're in the middle of negotiations. You're not discussing anything.
But I think some of what you're looking for, it is in some of the press releases, even the most recent one. Like there's been a lot of talk over the past several months in the press releases regarding a network of financial advisors. The company has been very active in speaking to professionals to figure out what to do, different strategies, different financial advisors, modifying those strategies, pivoting. So there's active discussions there. You've heard about the special committee. And you've heard about this plan in terms of, okay, like we are committed to trying to, learn more about the property, working towards MRE. We can't sit here and say, it's going to be at X. But that, we have a plan in place. All you've heard the past hour was this plan and how we're going to get there. And so for sure, and certainly, the members of the board can also chime in here, but it is definitely high priority.
I know I was going to give you a personal example of due diligence that I was part of that talked about the term sheets. Always irrelevant. Yeah. So I was part of a $150 million transaction that I was looking at, and it took 6 months to come to a result that we are not going to do part of the deal. So it took 21 term sheets and just back and forth, and it is a public mining company. But and it was critical to them to get that number, because that would mean the mine would be able to build themselves and there would be jobs created and everything else. But until and unless we have a finalized term sheet and there is signature and binding, goes back to JT's point, the press release was not allowed from the compliance perspective. Because, as I said, after 6 months of due diligence where I was involved, where there were technical advisors were hired, where legal advisors were hired, and we had to actually bear the cost of that entire technical due diligence. And JT knows lawyers are not cheap. So, and it is something that we have to bear. It's called the cost of deal. And it was around $500,000 that ultimately led to no deal. So this is something that we have to be very cognizant about, and that's exactly the reason we don't want to be ahead of ourselves in disclosing information to the markets that might move the stock price in the wrong direction, only to correct itself in the long run, and then it's
Crash and burn.
just misrepresentation at its highest order. So that's what I'm talking about public markets, because that's my bread and butter. Right? And I work with a lot of M&A bankers, lawyers as well, computers of Miller and Thompson, and so I come from that.
Janelle, do you want to add anything? You've got a lot of experience.
No, I'd just say buy more stock. I mean, if you've been in the story for a long time and you believe in the asset, which, you know, clearly Cynthia believes in her asset, and I can appreciate the quality of the asset, and it's there, and they wouldn't be in this game if it wasn't there. It takes a long time, and to speak to your comment right now about what you can say to the street and what you're doing, your hands are tied, and you can't say anything that moves the stock because that's against the law. And clearly, this is a team that's got an incredible amount of integrity, because there's no bullshit here. There's no over promotion. This is what they've done. This is their hard work. I'm impressed. I haven't seen this depth of the presentation, but yeah.
So let me talk about something positive, which is the macro environment, right? And why I think this is the best time of development for Ishkode, which if it was 5 years ago, I would have said no to this appointment because it's impossible. But now it is. And the reason for that is I have just a few numbers in my notes that might help you to understand where we are in terms of the global macro and the gold environment. So let me bring that paper.
I think that I saw this, and this is really important. It's good for you to know.
So this is my bread and butter. Macro research, then bottled down to micro research, and then what happens with the company, and then going back to the operational details of everything. So it's a top-down approach. Now we all know that gold has performed greatly in 2025, but I think what the audience would appreciate is what happened behind the backs between the M&A bankers and the investment firms, and what I do on a day-to-day basis. So in 2025, saw a 10-year record in financing of junior and intermediate mining companies. It was around $21 billion. Now, bear in mind the fact that the historical average, the 10-year historical average was just $11 billion. So it's double the amount of money that were raised in last year. Now, from the perspective of the miners, I'm talking about the top 10 gold miners. Think of the Agnicos, the Barricks, the Newmonts, the Kinross of the world. Their margins have expanded from 40% in 2020 to 60% as of Q1 2026. As part of my job, I have to analyze earnings. Now, this is under the backdrop of inflation. We all know how inflation has hit us badly in terms of, bread, milk, and consumables, and mining, and diesel, and fuel. Just all around the board, it is bad. But the margins have expanded. So what does this tell you? It tells you two things. First is there is new money coming into the system. Number two is internally, the companies are generating enough cash. Now, what do you do with it? Sound capital allocation policy is first to pay down the debt. And that's what the companies have been doing for the last 20 years. So there is a historical baggage with the mining industry that we are known to be extremely poor capital allocators where we destroy value. This is the historical context. Even Kevin O'Leary, I think in one of his talks, said that gold is a great business, but mining is a bad business. So bearing in mind that the miners have been very efficient in bringing down their debt, and right now we are seeing a backdrop of the strongest balance sheets that I have seen across the entire mining industry, the biggest cash balances that these companies are sitting on. Now, what do you do with this money? You don't just put the money in a bank. That's bad investment decision. So you deploy that cash. So how do you deploy that cash? The first thing that the miners unfortunately look like is inorganic opportunities, M&A. Now, as far as M&A goes, 2025 was the highest M&A deal in the gold market, and it reached a 15-year high. And if you include base metals, and it was disproportionate with the Tech and Anglo merger, it's $52 billion, a 20-year record. You don't find that. See, I have never seen fund managers, and even my bosses were not that senior to see what happened pre-2000, right? And the 10-year average for M&A is around 25 billion. So that's double the amount of money that traded hands and assets that exchanged hands in 2025. And this thing is continuing in 2026. So I am regularly in rooms with the bankers of Scotia and BMO because that's part of my job. There are bankers behave like brokerages. Think of real estate brokers. Anytime you want to buy an asset, there is a broker. Anytime you want to sell an asset, there is a broker, right? And they are in depth and in tune with what's happening with the markets. And I can tell you with reasonable confidence that the CEOs of Wheatons and Franco's and Agnicos and the chairmans, they are aggressive to deploy cash, but they want to find a quality story. They don't want to just randomly put money in stocks that and in stories that doesn't have the quality. The good thing is the jurisdiction that we have put in. There has been a lot of resource nationalism, and even right now, an asset in North America would trade at a much higher multiple than an asset in, let's say, West Africa or some other jurisdiction that doesn't have an established, sound regulatory framework and everything. And yeah, I mean, what makes this movement unusual is the backdrop which it is occurring. Every other industry, and I speak this from my conversations with my friends who are doing a similar job, but in healthcare or retail or IT, excluding AI and all those stuff, it's suffering, it's under pressure. So what we are seeing is a structural shift. It's not cyclical. Mining is a cyclical business, but it's a structural shift where during valuation, the miners are using a long-term gold price of around $3,500, value the assets, value the transactions, which just is so much disconnect from the spot prices. But people don't really know as to what's happening in this bullish environment because nobody has seen this bull environment for a long time. Nobody who's alive, and everything that we're doing is just looking at historical things and historical press releases and trying to forecast the future. But he has an experiential understanding of what's going on right now. But one thing for sure is capital is shifting into resources and involving mining, copper, gold, crude oil, and everything. And we have also seen that Canada is positioning itself to be a resource leading country, which was kind of interesting. That was long coming. And how does this matter for Ishkode? I would say that this is the best environment to develop the project, provided we do things rightly, provided we have the framework, provided we do what the market wants and not what we think is right. So that's where we come in, and the board is obsessively focused in doing that.
Good answer. Thank you. Thank you. Is that helpful? That was awesome. Thank you, Sean. No.
You know, we were talking about last night that it was not that long ago that it was just Cynthia and JT that were actually at the board meeting. And so when you look at the progression of what this is today, in particular, I make note of Vikram and Sean being added in the last 6-7 months. I think it should show everybody the direction of where this company is going and the value of the company. And I think it's incredibly undervalued. I've said it before that I've been investing in the sector since 2004. I still invest in a lot of other juniors. This is my main investment that I've invested into in the sector. And I believe that it's incredible value to buy at today's stock price, as you've heard Danielle say as well. And everybody, it's subjective. Everybody has to look at that on their own and see if this is the value that they see based on other things. But I encourage you to continue to study it, look at it, compare it to other juniors that are out there. But I think the biggest thing to see here is what has happened. It started with Cynthia and JT. Cynthia puts a tremendous amount of effort and time into exploration and just running the company. And now it's turned into a team of experts, a team of people that have tremendous networks and experience that are going to bring that to the table for LAURION. So I'm really excited about where we're going. I'm excited about 2026, and I think it's going to be a great year for the company.
Was that a clap for you, or was that clap for the end of the meeting? So,
Yeah.
is there any more questions? Any more questions, guys?
Carry on. You mentioned a bit that you plan to start drilling in May, which is first we've heard of it. With $6 to $7 million, I guess, including the flow throughs, we should have enough for about 15,000 meters of drilling. You mentioned in LinkedIn the other day that we have contracts existing with the drillers, and I'm sure they must be booked already.
Well, and
I haven't.
that's a very good thing. So you've got to obviously realize that the industry is in momentum, huge momentum. A lot of critical mineral flow through has been handed out. A lot of people are busy drilling their grassroots projects or their new little targets or their discoveries. They need drills. I've always believed that you've got to focus on your core service providers, which for me is the assay laboratories and our drillers. So create the best in class relationships. And yeah, I've had to, I booked them in the minute they left our project at the end of last year and they moved to a new project. I already said we're starting in May. So yes, we do have $6 million in cash, but it's not $6 million in cash that I intend to use, because that is our safety. You don't spend your cash. Cash is very hard to get hold of, so you keep your cash.
So based on having $6 million that we don't want to spend on drilling right now,
Not inclined to spend on drilling right now.
but plan to start drilling in May.
Correct.
Leave the forethought for the rest of us.
We can still start drilling. There's nothing to stop us from drilling. We will continue to drill.
Just to clarify, cash versus flow through. You're using the flow through.
No, flow through is only used for drilling. That's the purpose of flow through for developing exploration programs. Yes.
What the additional financing could probably be flow through as well.
Correct. Yeah. It is pretty straightforward. Any other questions? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Right.